The following presentation is funded in part by Centerstone. Hello, and welcome to this communication education session on the impact of COVID-19 on brain health, presented by the Brain Health Initiative for Centerstone patients and clients. I'm Dr. Shelley Carson. I'm a scientific director of research at the Brain Health Initiative, and I'm a psychologist, researcher, and lecturer at Harvard University's Department of Psychology and School of Continuing Education. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused widespread fear of infection, not only for ourselves, but for loved ones and friends, and it's affected our lives in just about every conceivable way, from loss or alteration of jobs and closing of schools, to the way we shop, get a haircut, and interact with friends and family. The pandemic is taking a toll on the nation's and the world's mental health. According to a report published by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, published in August of 2020, based on a survey of over 5,000 Americans, around 31% are experiencing symptoms of anxiety or depression, and 26% are experiencing symptoms related to trauma and stress. Worldwide, symptoms rated of overall psychological stress across 3 continents vary from 34% to 38%, according to a multinational survey of 19 studies representing over 93,000 participants. So, if you're experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression or other distress due to COVID, you are not alone. Out of the research conducted on mental health and COVID, we've learned a great deal about what symptoms, practices, and behaviors are more likely to increase risk for COVID-related mental health issues. In this brief video, we'll share some of those findings and also about how to protect yourself from these risks. We've divided these into 3 sections. First, we'll look at ways to reduce risk through communication with healthcare providers. Second, we'll look at how stress reduction can protect against risk of greater psychological distress. Finally, we'll look at how enhancing brain health through following some simple steps can improve your overall well-being and resilience against COVID-related mental health issues. The first thing we'll look at is increasing communication. As social distancing has become the rule of the land, people with pre-existing mental health issues may become more isolated from others. In fact, this is a risk factor. This is the time to reach out and communicate with others. One thing we've learned from this past year is that a substantial percentage of people who are diagnosed with COVID-19 have symptoms that don't fit into the classic respiratory profile of fever, shortness of breath, cough, and fatigue. Many people experience neurologic as well as respiratory symptoms but aren't reporting them. These symptoms can lead to both worsening mental health symptoms and worsening COVID symptoms, so be aware of them and report them if you should notice any. The most common of these neurological symptoms are anosmia, or loss of sense of smell, ageusia, loss of sense of taste, headache, muscle pain, dizziness or incoordination, difficulty concentrating or mental confusion, and difficulty waking or staying awake. We know that these symptoms can occur at any time during the COVID infection and are often present, especially loss of smell or taste, even before other symptoms might be present. Again, these symptoms are one of the risk factors that researchers have noted, so be sure to contact your healthcare provider or your mental health professional right away if you notice any of these symptoms. It's also important that you stay in regular communication with your mental health care provider and continue appointments and care as usual. Make sure to let your mental health care professional know if you sense any worsening of your existing symptoms, especially anxiety and depression, or any new symptoms and changes that you may have noticed in your thoughts, tendencies, or behaviors. For example, if you have the urge to engage in risky behaviors like speeding, or if you're taking any new substances, or especially if you have the urge to harm yourself. Your mental health professional won't judge these behaviors. They may be related to the COVID pandemic, and they're not uncommon, so it's important to share this information. Communicate about your basic needs. For example, communicate with your pharmacist. Do you have enough of your prescriptions to get you through this period? If not, do you need help getting prescriptions? Most pharmacies can help with this. Don't delay getting your prescriptions, or don't quit taking them just because you can't pick them up. If you can't get out to get groceries, do you have someone who can help with this? Don't skip meals because you can't get to the store to get food. If you don't have a family member you can coordinate with, talk to your mental health care provider about this. Together, you can set up a plan to make sure your needs are met during the pandemic. Finally, communicate regularly with family, friends, and neighbors. Social distancing does not mean social isolation. Social isolation is one of the major risk factors for worsening of mental health issues, so make a plan to have frequent contact with others. Despite the arrival of vaccines, we still need to observe social distancing for some time to come. Social connection and social support are one of the most potent protective factors against virtually all forms of mental illness, according to a comprehensive 2018 survey by Wang et al. Staying connected during the pandemic may take a little more work, and here are some tips based on scientific reviews and surveys. Set up a call schedule so that you'll make sure that you make contact with important people in your life on a regular basis. You should be making social contacts with someone each day. Several web conferencing platforms are available for free, or at least the trials are free, so it's easy to make meetings with friends and distant family members over Zoom or another platform. Join a web-based club. For example, there are a number of book clubs online that anyone can join. Or, if you're really ambitious, you might sign up for a class online. There are many free classes available, and some have a conference component where you can interact with others. Plan outdoor get-togethers, such as socially distanced driveway coffee gatherings with neighbors in the morning, or evening with neighbors where everyone brings their own lawn chair and a beverage. If you want to meet new people, volunteer in your local community. Many community organizations are in need of volunteers right now, and many offer trainings of new skills. You can be creative in your socializing, even during what I call COVID captivity. Now let's turn to stress reduction. Stress is a major risk factor for worsening of mental illness. In several studies, people with high levels of stress have been shown to have more severe symptoms of the disease and longer duration of symptoms. Most people experience specific signs that they're overstressed. Examples include headaches, stomach aches, sweating, loss of sex drive or skin breakouts, and other examples are irritability, impatience, maybe feeling trapped or feeling overwhelmed, eating compulsively, pulling at your hair, skin picking, pacing, or picking fights. And these are just some of the signs. So try to get a feel for your unique signs of stress and where you currently are on the stress thermometer on the right side of this screen. Stop and check for these stress signs a few times a day. This will allow you to manage the stress response before it hijacks you. Once you realize you're overstressed, take a revive break at the earliest possible time. This is a short period, a minimum of a half hour, that allows you to calm down and de-stress so that you can think clearly about how to reduce your stress load. During the revive break, you shouldn't think about your stressors. You should just allow yourself some tranquility. Here are some recommendations for the revive break. Meditation, yoga, listening to or playing some soothing music, reading a good book, writing in a journal or diary, or taking a long hot bath or shower, as well as other suggestions we mention here. Now note that these suggestions for the revive break do not include using substances of any sort. Substance use is on the rise during the COVID pandemic and only leads to future problems down the road. Select a positive method for reviving after stress, such as one of the ideas from our list. Once you've revived, you can think now rationally about what may be causing your stress. First, define, preferably in writing, the main causes of your current stress. Put a check mark next to those stressors you have some control over. Things like paying bills, bad relationships, overdue projects or assignments, unemployment, weight-related issues, and fears that you're going to infect a loved one with COVID are some examples of things you have some control over. Pick a stressor that you have some control over and make a plan to deal with that stressor. A plan that you can begin to implement as quickly as possible. The very act of making a plan often reduces stress and anxiety and gives you the sense that you're not helpless. Taking the first steps toward eliminating or neutralizing a stressor is empowering, even though the stressor may still temporarily be in your life. Next, maintain a routine. In times of uncertainty, a steady daily and/or weekly routine is very reassuring that there's still some stability to life. We know we're not yet out of the woods with this pandemic, despite the arrival of vaccines, and routines have been shown to reduce stress and anxiety. Try to eat meals, sleep, and plan daily activities such as exercise so that you maintain a rhythm that imparts stability to your daily life. One of the major findings from many studies of COVID-19 and mental health issues, surprisingly, is that people who spend more time on social media and cable news watching coverage of COVID-19 are more susceptible to anxiety and depression symptoms. Therefore, it's important to limit your exposure to COVID-related news sources. While you want to have up-to-date and reliable information, given that spending too much time on social media and cable news sites has been shown to be a risk factor, checking in with government websites such as the CDC or the National Institutes of Health once weekly is a healthier option. Finally, follow the published guidelines for COVID-19 safety protocol in your local area. The best way to reduce anxiety about getting COVID is to reduce your chances of getting COVID. By following the guidelines, you're proactively taking steps to protect yourself, those close to you, and your community. At the Brain Health Initiative, we've identified a set of lifestyle behaviors that, for better or worse, influence the health of the brain. These are protective factors, which we call pillars of brain health. Protective factors offset risk factors for mental illness, and strengthen resilience against future illness. We just talked about how important it is to manage stress. Stress resilience is at the top of the list of brain health protective factors. And we've also talked about how important social connections are. Let's look at a few of the other brain health pillars. First, nutrition. The diets recommended currently for optimal brain health are the Mediterranean-style diets. To improve your nutrition, try making one of the following changes each week, and then continue to add a change a week. These are relatively easy to implement. 1. Substitute olive oil for butter when you cook or when using on bread. 2. Add berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, or strawberries to your diet several times a week. 3. Add leafy green vegetables such as spinach or kale or romaine about 3 times a week. 4. Eat fish at least once a week, unless of course you're vegan. 5. Drink 2 extra glasses of water each day, up to 8 glasses of water. 6. Cut down on fast foods. And 7th, omit at least 2 sweets or baked goods, such as cookies, cakes, or candy, or soft drink from your diet each week. There, these changes aren't that difficult, but make a tremendous difference in your mood over time. Perhaps the biggest favor you can do for your brain is to move, and move often. Oxygenating the brain allows it to perform its functions properly, and exercise is an evidence-based treatment for depression. Guidelines suggest 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week for optimum brain health benefit. But any amount of movement is better than no movement. Many people find using a step tracker or having an accountability buddy helps them stay on track. But finding a type of exercise you enjoy is just as important. You can start out slow and gradually add time to your daily exercise. You'll feel better, sleep better, and work better. Speaking of sleep, the COVID pandemic has caused insomnia and other problems worldwide. An Italian survey found that 57% of respondents reported poorer sleep quality since the pandemic began. Your brain cannot flush toxins, consolidate learning, or maintain attention and executive functioning without sleep. For many people, reducing stress, as we talked about previously, will help with sleep problems. Try to get up at the same time each day. In other words, try to keep a sleep routine. Other tips from the experts include getting adequate exercise during the day, turning off electronic devices 1 hour before bedtime to reduce blue light, avoiding alcohol in the hours before bedtime, and practicing mindful meditation to calm the mind. Shoot for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Now, speaking of alcohol, if you have an alcohol use disorder, you need to know that heavy drinking and respiratory illnesses such as COVID are not a good combination. Past research has shown that people who are heavy drinkers are more likely to need ventilation during severe respiratory infections. While there is some research that indicates light to moderate intake of alcohol may protect somewhat against getting viral infections, once you've contracted the virus, alcohol becomes a risk factor for more serious illness. If you have an alcohol use disorder, do not drink or resume drinking in order to avoid getting the virus. The last pillar of brain health we'll discuss is emotional well-being. The research on emotional well-being is very robust. In a number of large studies, positive feelings and emotional well-being have predicted longer life, reduced heart disease, diabetes, and of course, lower depression and anxiety rates. Now, it's easy to say that we'd like emotional well-being, but in the midst of the COVID pandemic, how do you do this? Here are some suggestions from the research. Mindfulness meditation is one recommendation. Mindfulness has been shown to literally change our brains in positive ways that increase resilience. Laugh, and laugh often. Research shows that even forced laughter can improve your mood. Make a list of happy memories, either in a journal or in a computer file that you can flesh out and add details to as you remember them. And then read your list on a regular basis. Similarly, make gratitude a practice. In the gratitude list practice, you write down between 3 and 5 things in your life, large or small, that you're grateful for several nights a week. Even in the middle of the pandemic, there are still many things you can find to be grateful for. In studies where this practice has been done nightly, it's been shown to increase emotional well-being extensively enough to be noticed by others, and as an added bonus, to improve sleep quality. The point isn't to be happy and joyful all the time, but rather to insert moments of well-being into your life so that the scales of positive to negative moments gradually begin to tip more toward the positive. This increases healthful outcomes for both your brain and body, and it's possible for everyone to achieve, even if you're currently experiencing depression, anxiety, or stress-related disorders. The pillars of brain health are each important in their own right. However, they don't stand in isolation. Like pillars of a building, they work together to support brain health. Each supports the others in this mission. For example, social connection builds stress resilience. Emotional well-being provides motivation for better eating habits or nutrition, and exercise or physical activity, and vice versa. By initiating improvement in one pillar, you can begin an upward spiral that benefits positive change in many other pillars as well. Let's review what we've discussed in this video. You're not alone. Many people are suffering from psychological distress due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but there are many things you can do to help yourself have a positive outcome. Communicate regularly with healthcare providers, mental health care professionals, family, and friends. Reduce stress by turning off the news and engaging in reviving activities. Bolster your brain health through good nutrition, exercise, sleep, and mindful activities. And remember that there are things to be grateful for even in the midst of the pandemic. Focusing on gratitude improves both mental and physical health. Living with mental health issues in this pandemic is not easy. But research is showing us that you can take charge of many aspects of your condition. By communicating regularly with others and building social connections, reducing stress, and working toward better brain health, even in small increments, you can be in command of your situation and come out of this pandemic with strength and resilience. For more information on brain health, please visit the Brain Health Initiative at www.brainhealthinitiative.com. Thank you. I'm Dr. Shelley Carson.